Welcome, everyone, to the NYCFC Nation podcast. This is the second episode of 2019. If you guys want to hear Jordan and Nick on the New York City football podcast, they just dropped one yesterday, or I should say today, 2 days ago, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. But with me for the first time in the podcast history is at NYCFCTactics. Good evening. What's going on?
Not much, man. Glad to be on board. Glad to be kicking off this new season. Lots of fun, spicy drama all over the Twitter sphere. So ready to chop it up.
All right, that's awesome. So how should I call you? I'm gonna call you at Tactics.
Yeah, Tactics is the what everyone in the DMs hits me up with. So
all right, cool. So everyone may not know you. So at Tactics, or I should say at NYCFC Tactics, 3 first questions that I have to ask every guest, and I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but it's been a common thread for all our new guests here. But is cereal soup?
Challenging.
Is it really?
Yeah, because I get the technical merits of it, like a hot dog sandwich bullshit, but I think it's just I don't think it's a soup. Because I just don't think anything that covered in milk can be called a soup. But I guarantee there's someone who's like a gazpacho or something is milk-based. Call me out on it. But I'll say not a soup.
Got it. Cream cheese or butter on your bagel?
Oof. I think it's okay as a kid to have butter, but as an adult, cream cheese is the only way to go.
I have to change my answer on that. I was team cream cheese.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I realized I can't handle cream cheese as much as I used to. But I have actually went to where I live in Queens, nearby in Whitestone, there's a bagel factory, and I love their bagels.
Yeah.
I get whatever. So I get all these bagels, and I realize I prefer some bagels with cream cheese and some with butter. But,
interesting.
Yeah, I have to kind of lean off of that cream cheese because after eating that in 3 hours, I'm like,
Yeah, for sure. I get it. I'm pretty basic with my bagel. I'm either a plain or a salt, so I need a lot of cream cheese and flavor in there. So
all right. I never tried a salt bagel.
Yeah, it's the thing that's going to kill me. Sodium for sure.
If not the team, pineapple on your pizza?
No, I'm a traditionalist, and I come from Connecticut, so New Haven pizza is actually real pizza for me. So that's even more sacrilege to put a pineapple on it.
Got it. Yeah, I know Nick Chavez is from that part of town, and he loves his pizza out there. Which I haven't had yet. I haven't had any pizza from Connecticut. So
they're heavy hitters out there. You got to be careful.
All right. So you gave a little bit about yourself. You told us your top 3 or our top 3 questions here. Why don't you give our fan base a little bit more about you? Go as in depth as you want. Sure. And I have a few questions for you afterwards as well.
Can do. Yeah, I've been a season ticket holder since the beginning, founding member. I've been a New Yorker for about 10 years now. Originally from Connecticut. Grew up playing soccer. Wasn't very skilled or anything like that. Played a lot of defense and center defensive mid, and definitely my brain is more useful than my feet. And so part of the carrying on, I went to a college that had a pretty competitive D1 soccer program. So, I'd go to those games and talk to my friends on the team and try and figure it out what they're, tactically what they're doing. And, it kind of continued there from, when I finally became a season ticket holder. I was like, I'm going to go all in on this team. And after the first year of following, I was just like, there's no voice really that exists from that, very nuanced, attempting to be, tactical angle from the fans, past then like, we should have scored a goal.
You suck.
Like, yeah, like all that, that kind of noise. Now, granted, I'll get into that stuff sometime, and I try to be as positive as possible. But yeah, I'm super interested in the, the small technical stuff of, why do we play Rodney Wallace on the left wing, against this fullback when, Jonathan Lewis was available, and like besides just being, like our coach is dumb, like. Were they trying something? What's going on there? And so that was kind of the, the genesis of the, what I tweet about. And then from there, just, whether it's, the stuff I get into with, the dummy run.
You can keep going.
Yeah,
It's a new season, and my dog is still making noise when I record, but that's all good.
It's all good. And then I've always just also loved soccer culture and stuff like that. I grew up following the Premier League, Serie A, and the Bundesliga as much as possible. So soccer is just something that's I wake up early on Saturday morning, watch my soccer, and I stay up all day as long as I can. As long as there's soccer on, I'm good. I'm in a good mood.
So what made you become a New York City fan? Were you interested in MLS before they were established?
Complicated.
To answer my question, I wasn't an MLS fan, so I didn't have a team to support, and now I do. So
I think it was a myriad of things of outside of soccer, I love all sports and even esports. I watch everything. And so when it became apparent that there was going to be a team coming to the 5 boroughs, something that was attainable for a season ticket for me. And I have a bunch of friends in the city that also love it. So it was just made a lot of sense. Before that, I hadn't, I don't think I'd ever been to an MLS game before I bought season tickets. But I've obviously watched a crud ton of soccer live and on TV. So it wasn't like an MLS too, I guess, on TV. But
so before then, who were you supporting? Or at least who were you? I don't know if we support diehard fan, but who were you rooting for?
Yeah, I rooted for the DC United teams back in the day, just because I thought they were they're winning, they're at least playing something interesting, and probably the couple games they get on TV were DC United. I do remember Kyle Martino, that grew up near me. And so I knew he was playing on Columbus. So, I was very in tune with what was going on there and, him being a draft pick and all that stuff,
right.
Talked about in local papers and stuff. Nothing really crazy, obviously got way more into it. Once I graduated from college, a couple of my friends, ended up in the MLS. So, even more of wait, what's going on here? And then, I could start playing with my friends as, characters and, FIFA and all that stuff. And it's wait, what's happening here? This is really weird.
Can you name drop?
Clint Irwin, the goalkeeper for I think he's back on the Rapids now, but he was with Toronto for a bit.
Okay.
And then
what was his FIFA rating?
Not great. It might be better now.
It might be better
he was close to some national team call-ups, or in theory. So I feel like they always And then Lovitz is a couple years younger than me. Or more years than that, I don't know. And so I know friends of friends that know him. But yeah.
All right, that's sweet. So I find that pretty interesting that you can actually play your friends on a video.
Yeah, it was weird.
Awesome.
It's super weird. And then you're you have your Manchester United career mode or Juventus or whatever you're doing, and then you buy your friends and stick them on the bench. It's fun.
Do him a favor. Sounds something like Domingue did last season.
Yeah, I signed you to a big contract. Pay for lunch.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Tactics, for giving a little bit about yourself. You went pretty in depth, more than I thought you would. Sure. So I hope that the fan base here, who follows us heavily on Twitter at NYCFC Nation, who follow you on Twitter at NYCFCTactics, could get a little, I guess, voice behind the Twitter account as well.
Behind the sass.
Yeah, right. Sure. So the last time we recorded, the only signing NYCFC had was Rocha. I forgot how to pronounce his name already, which probably doesn't matter anymore. We have gone through a lot of signings, a lot of releases, a lot of rumors. Players are in training camp. We had our first preseason game against FC Copenhagen, which ended 2-0. We can talk about that. I am going to go through the long timeline list of acquisitions and of releases. So number one, NYCFC acquired Keaton Parks on a year loan from SL Benfica. According to the website, or NYCFC.com, he's a versatile central midfielder who can play at the base of the midfield or in a more advanced role. We did see him also play against FC Copenhagen just a few days ago.
Yeah, he played really well.
So we'll get into that. NYCFC welcomes back Ebenezer Ofori on another season-long loan from VfB Stuttgart, with an option to buy at the end of 2019, which to me I think is a sign for perhaps NYCFC wants to have him long term. Going to youth or having more youth on our team, Justin Hack has been signed to his first professional contract with the club. He's 17 years old, and I can't remember what I was doing when I was 17, but boy, would I have loved to have been signed to a soccer team at that age. In terms of releasing, NYCFC and Joe-Ing Burgett are no longer mutually together. NYCFC and Joe-Ing Burgett have agreed to separate from each other like a good divorce. And interestingly enough, he's played 23 games or regular season games and has scored 4 goals and recorded 3 assists. Keeping young, NYCFC signed midfielder Juan Pablo Torres to a multi-year contract from Belgian First Division A club KSC Lokeren. He's 19 and he is an American, which is great. More American youth joining our team. Next to leave our team is Cedric Hutanji, who played twice for the team, or who had 2 appearances for NYCFC. Unfortunately, he got hurt in that U.S. Open Cup, but we never saw him again. There was a super draft in which United States, which the NYCFC franchise traded the $75,000 of GAM money and the 19th overall pick to the Galaxy for the 12th overall pick to get Luis Barraza, a goalkeeper who they also signed to the club. And finally, Monday, Alexandru Mitrita has joined the club as the 3rd designated player who comes from Romania, plays for the Romanian national team. He's 23 years old, another young player. And according to the website, he can play an attacking midfielder, winger, or forward. He's also with the team right now in Abu Dhabi. He did not play against FC Copenhagen, so most likely he will get time against AIK. I think it's on Friday, the match.
Yeah.
With all this news here that just came up, let's start off with Alexandru Mitrita. Blue Mini Mike wants to know, on a scale of David Villa to Andrea Pirlo, how is Alexandru going to work out as an NYCFC DP? And the other 2 options were David Villa, I should say first, Maxi Morales, Frank Lampard, and then Pirlo.
So yeah, obviously hard to gauge without, seeing how, a couple games in the MLS or even, how they're, Dome is going to use him in a formation. I think some people get a little starry-eyed with, assists and goals. I think he's going to deliver a lot of stuff as well. But I definitely think has the potential to be Maxi plus. I'm not going to go so bold and, say David. But, I think he's going to be here a lot longer than Lampard. I think the health issues are going to be way less.
I would hope.
And so, definitely above, the average of the 4, or, if in theory you could put Medina in there as the literal average. But yeah, I think he's going to be a lot better than, some of the naysayers say, but, that's not a really hot take. So
no, I would say, so if you were to vote, you would vote Maxi.
Yeah, I voted Maxi on the poll that you put out there.
Cool. Yeah, I would say he got 64% who voted for Maxi, so you're not the only one. The next highest is Frank Lampard at 19%. I was one of the few who voted for David Villa. And now I can't say David Villa in the terms of what he did for the team off the field.
Sure.
I think he could provide a lot of scoring the way David Villa did. Now, again, all I have to go off is highlights, and I'm not using that as highlights. And we don't know how he's going to be used in the team. We don't know Dome how he's going to have him rotate up there. I would imagine some time of rotation until we get a quote-unquote real striker up there. Because at the end of the day, David Villa wasn't a striker. He's more of I don't want to say winger, but he's more of a forward who should have someone up there in front of him. And we left him in no man's land a lot. Yep. And he's younger than Villa. So you talked about injuries compared to Frank Lampard and Andrea Pirlo and David Villa. They were all plus 30. This kid is 23. We just have a 17-year-old, a 19-year-old. You could only imagine, I would hope, and the reason why I voted for Villa in that poll is because I could only hope he could use this opportunity to take control and say, you know what, maybe in 2 years he won't be with us anymore. because
sure.
he's being sold off to a higher team, perhaps Man City. I would hope he would use this opportunity to grow his career and make more money for him and his family. And by doing that, you need to score a lot of goals. And I would hope that he would become a quote unquote David Villa like prospect for us. So yeah, good question there from Blue Mini Mike. Pierce Mulero at Knicksman54 wants to know, of these new signings, who are you most excited to watch and play? And which is the best one in your opinion? And let me ask you a flip question on that. Which one do you think of these signings won't see much playing time? That could be Hack, but let's get rid of the 17.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I'm not counting Hack as one. You know, from some of the sources and some of the chitter chatter and water cooler talk. I definitely think Hack is going to actually be staying with the U19 team a lot, unless there's some real injury crisis or something like that. That would happen with James Sands last year. Right. I think they're pretty slow to that, but yeah, drop him off the map there a little bit. I actually think it's Rocha. Rocha, I don't know how to probably say it, but he seems like an MLS, American filler. And with that midfield already being, kind of as we've talked about, like I think there's 8 or 9 listed midfielders or something like that. I think he's the bottom of the barrel for me. But the one I'm actually most excited to watch him play is Keaton Parks. I think from what I've watched and the highlights to the 45 minutes he played on Tuesday or whatever the hell that was. Mm-hmm. He's very technical and he can hit a crossfield ball pretty well. And in an offense that's, so far is going to rely heavily on wingers stretching it out wide, whether that be Matrizia or Izzy or, Jonathan Lewis, that's going to be really valuable. And also, I think, there's a tweet later, I think, next one is like, why do we keep signing all these short players? And he's a big boy, 6'3". And besides our center backs, we need some height unless there's this mythical 6'9" center striker that we're going to get, which I don't think so because those are not cheap. He's going to have to be an aerial presence for us on set pieces and defensively and offensively. And he's also going to have to provide some steel in the midfield to cover, replace Yangel's production in that area, and also, allow Ring to get forward more offensively. And especially if, Ring takes some days off, if it's going to be Sands playing in that pivot role, which I desperately want as, an NYCFC fan. And I think it's great for the long-term success of the club that he gets minutes this year, Sands. Keaton Parks is going to have to, ball out. Because otherwise that midfield's a lot of, short possession-based guys. And, we're going to need some steel there. Obviously I'm super excited about Matrizia, but compared to the current expectations, I think, a DP's got a DP. Otherwise your team's going to be terrible. I think we've come to learn that, but I think I'm most excited about Keaton. I think he has the most interesting ceiling for us for production.
Yeah, I would. That question about the why are we having so many short players is from Panda Bear 1999. I would ask also, if you look at where, I guess this happened even before Domer became our coach, and even with Patrick Vieira. But if you look at the philosophy that Man City or CFG incorporates, and taking that from streams of Barcelona as well, do you remember having those teams ever having a tall, demanding striker up top?
Unless you count like Edin Dzeko with Man City, but that's like pre-Pep. And then you could talk about Zlatan and where like that year of hell happened for them. With Barca. Yeah, it's not a common thing for them. They don't like it. They really hyper value, possession and ball circulation and quick touches
and movement.
And movement. They're looking for Bernardo Silva, David Silva types, the people that can sit on the edge of the box with both feet, can flick it to the corner or flick it to the middle. And even with the center striker, I always think about they're more interested in movement in the final third, in the box than they are of like, ramming the ball off somebody's head. I think America, because sometimes we don't, we're very obvious with how we, steal from other cultures in terms of soccer identity of like, you're going to play the Italian style or you're going to play the English style. I think, or for a club to so blatantly just, be like, this is what we do no matter what, especially in terms of, hunting down players and what, an NYCFC player looks like. I think that's something that we're, learning through the way they, acquire players, their acquisition strategies.
Yeah.
And then, you can tell a lot by a coach, a GM, whatever you want to call Reina, and football director. And, as you kind of pointed out, CFG is like, there's a holistic viewpoint of how soccer should be played, or football. And, I wouldn't, the day they're going to trot out a 6'3" striker, that guy's actually going to have to be, really good with his feet.
Right.
And I would almost suspect he's, not good in the air at all.
Like, imagine they want our goalkeepers to be good with their feet. Imagine what they expect from a striker.
The offense is heavy possession, so you're going to be in the final third a lot, and to create offense in the final third without, crazy verticality and counterattacking, not to get too into the weeds, but kind of my shtick, is that, it's actually far more important to have that on the floor, or a little bit of a chip pass, knock out 3 or 4 defenders in one go. And, those players, usually are pretty small and pretty delicate. And, that's how it goes, and it's not, and it's not like there hasn't been players like that have been successful in the MLS. Higuain on Columbus or Giovinco in Toronto. There's plenty of players that are small or don't use their physical stature as their main or secondary weapon. It's possible. It's kind of terrifying when your whole team's built around it, but it's definitely a commitment that they're going for. Even
to a point with Acosta in DC United, sure. So height doesn't always matter. Obviously, it does matter when you're, standing in a wall defending a free kick.
Yeah,
you don't want to put all your defenders on that wall when they should be defending attackers and all that.
Yeah. I worry about set pieces. Yeah, a lot.
Was that?
I worry about set pieces a lot.
Well, that's been our MO since day one, right? We always had a hard time defending set pieces. We always had a hard time defending corner kicks or even taking free kicks. It was just that's the norm.
And then we start with, I think, it was the first real, pounding my head in my seat at Yankee Stadium when it was just back post balls to Kyle Larin, just ramming it into the goal over and over again. I was just, you just wanted to cry. You're just like, and it's happening. It's happening. My poor girlfriend knew it was going to happen, and she doesn't watch soccer. So she's like, I think that guy's going to score. I'm like, I know.
You can slowly see it happening too.
Yeah.
It's all unfolding in front of your eyes.
Dude, just jumping, and my backside defender just got gobbled up.
So we got a lot of questions again coming from Twitter, and these all pertain here to our recent acquisitions. Brandon West Side, who's going to be our quote unquote striker, and Auto 421 has a bunch of questions here. We have a lot of youth. Who do we actually expect to play? How do we feel about the amount of young Americans specifically? And do you see us loaning out Sands, Hawk, and Lewis? Before you get there, for me to answer Paul Pierce's question, which signing am I most excited to watch and play? It might sound corny, but it's our new DP. We've all complained about how much money or lack of money CFG is spending. And here we have a massive signing. Was it over 8 million or is it 8 million? I forgot what it was. That is the largest amount of money, at least for right now, for NYCFC. I can only imagine it getting bigger and bigger as the years go by. So to take an easy answer, I would say Alexandru Mitrita would be my most excited player to watch because he's a DP, to see what he brings at 23. But I'm really looking forward to these American boys come back to America, play for New York City FC, and show that they are better than the time they've been given overseas. So whether it's Parks or whether it's
Torres or Rocha
exactly. I'm looking forward to seeing more American players, which is something I would never said before. But go at it with Brandon Weiss, our striker, and then who do you expect our youth players to be?
Complicated. I've just like everyone else who thinks too much about NYCFC.
Do you?
What is a striker? What does it mean? What does Dome think a striker means? You know, what is reality? We played Rodney Wallace at striker a lot last year. Like, what's going on?
What is a podcast? Because NYCFC doesn't realize what a podcast is.
Yeah, it gets real dark and twisted. But I think right now, if you're looking for who's the guy who's going to be in the box in the final, 90 plus minutes when we need a goal, I think it's going to be Tati, as the roster is currently constructed. Mm-hmm. I also expect Keaton to be pushed way more up the field if we're going to, got to go Route 1 and, a divisional game against an Eastern Conference or, a knockout game, whether it be Open Cup or playoffs. I do suspect, as I think I kind of tweeted out this morning, that we're probably getting another top line player. There just seems to be a hole in our roster construction there, and we have a lot of GAM TAM money. Granted, I don't know those acronyms too well, but the people I trust have been like, we got a lot of that left, so we could buy down someone pretty well if the transfer fee isn't really big, and so that could be a summer thing. Or that could be a person at a club that's not being relegated or not going for a championship, and they're just trying to offload an asset. So yeah, I think it's Tati, but the person who's going to be lining up at the center spot, kicking the ball backwards opening day, it's probably going to be Maxi or Matrizia. But I think that has more to do with ball retention and possession than anything. I think there's going to be a lot of fluidity in the front three, and I would think of it more as a trident than I would think about it as a singular striker in the vein of Villa or Ibrahimovic, right, or that household name at top of the billing.
If you will, I remember many games where we might be down a goal, or it might be a tie game, and you just see Villa up top alone. Waiting for a long ball. And I felt like it was really hard for our defending third to move that ball up to Villa in order to create an attack. And sometimes it happens, and sometimes he got on a breakaway and he made magic happen. That's what Villa does sometimes. I feel like with these players, we're not going to have that type striker, quote unquote, like the Villa up top by himself. They're going to push him down more so that when we do move up, we all move up as a team together. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, I think, Dome, especially with Villa, came to learn that like Villa's style of backing down a center back, I can't get this image out of my head of Chad Marshall, all 6 foot billion of him, gobbling up Villa as Villa's trying to back him up, try to win a header on, a counter or, a clearance, and trying to retain possession, hold the ball up there. I don't see that as a strategy anymore. I'd far more likely to see a winger, stuck out, above their fullback. So think about like Mo Salah on Liverpool, staying by the halfway line and making that fullback on the other team make a decision of whether to mark him or not. And then, quick play, dump to that corner, and it's a foot race. And we do have a lot of talent in there, whether it be Matrizia, Maxi, Jonathan Lewis, that are, real burners. And Izzy and Izzy Tajuri Shradi as well, just lightning in a bottle. I think that's how we're going to solve a lot of that, tension right there.
Yeah, I hope so. And just to finalize at Aldos 421, do you think we're going to be loaning out any of these young American players?
I'm scared that Sands is going to be loaned out because that Louisville coach is his youth coach from the national team. And I think if Dome, sees that, I think it's Louisville FC or whatever.
City, yeah, Louisville City.
Yeah, I'm terrible with that stuff.
You could almost make sure you can almost be 95% accurate to say football club or city, something like that.
Yeah. Welcome to the noise. But yeah, I'm worried that if Dome and Reyna don't see minutes for him with a pretty clogged midfield already, we're not even talking about Bedoya. He played left wing in that preseason game. I suspect he'll play much more centrally. If he actually gets minute this year, but
and we also didn't see Lewis. He was with the
for sure. Yeah, so there's some weird pressures going on for Sands, and that's the only one I'm worried about of Hack and what was the other one?
Lewis.
Oh, Spicy take is one of my favorite things to do on Twitter. I saved one for today. It's like, my spicy take is I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Lewis by the end of this year is no longer on NYCFC. I think he is a hot commodity within the American soccer circles. But I've talked to some of my other people in the world, and there's like, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so I think he's a good asset to flip for stuff in the MLS. So I actually don't think a loan's the thing. I think a transfer's the thing. And if he doesn't win over Dome for minutes, that becomes a problem. And it's specifically because he's on such a team-friendly contract with the Generation Adidas thing. He's a hot commodity in terms of trading, especially if he's not getting the minutes. So his contract's not ticking off. But yeah, I most worry about Sands going out on loan. But I think Hack, as I kind of said, is going to be sticking with the U19 team. I don't see him, traveling too much, especially I think he's still in a local high school here.
Fair enough. So we just went through all the recent signings and releases. Of the releases, Joang Burgett and Cedric Hutanji, are you happy with them? I don't want to say happy, but do you understand the reasons why they released them? Would you have wanted to keep one of them? What are your thoughts on those two?
This digs up, how I view soccer as well. It's like it's a business, so I'm a little confused why we didn't try to transfer Burgett. That's he's under contract. I don't understand why we didn't try to sell him. I don't know if that has complications with MLS and all that fun stuff, and it was just not worth the headache and just let him go. Because I don't think his transfer would have been for more than it would be less than $1 million. So I don't know if that's actually worth anything for CFG in terms of all the dumb paperwork they'd have to do with MLS, splitting that revenue and all that. So yeah, it's so bad I don't even remember the center. Hajani? What was his name? Hutanji? Yeah. On paper, yeah, you can tell. He seemed like a real interesting center back candidate. Seemed like decent on the ball, good in the air. Injuries happen. I wish him all the best. He's an international slot, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And so, last year we got into a pinch with international slots, and I don't think we want to get stuck there again, especially with a fourth string center back. I think that's just I think it's as we've learned with Sweat and Ibiaga. I think that's a good place to stash an American.
Yep.
So I don't feel bad about that. I'm not sad Burgett left. I think he and Villa ran into each other too much. They were both left winger, left channel striker types.
Yep.
And so when they played together, and because they didn't really have the rhythms or the time to, Burgett was hurt, he was hurt, Villa was hurt, it was this, I think they played like a total of like less than 400 minutes together or something. They're running into each other constantly, especially at Yankee Stadium. So, I liked him as a player, but, he false started so many times in terms of, he'd have that one touch in a game or whatever. But, I think he has a lot of assets in terms of he has good in the air, decent with his feet, quick, wasn't scared of physical contact, was, tactically astute to understand, start off the press well for NYCFC. Right. Those are all real things. That's a professional soccer player.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was just sad we didn't get anything in return. I always think when a free transfer happens, that's kind of a black mark or a demerit on the front office of just like, you can't lock down your assets, and you can't cash out for them. And the way you build more assets is by building it up. Just look at any good functioning soccer team that isn't a top 5 league. It's how they do business.
Right. All right. Fair enough. So we're going to move into what happened. I guess earlier today was a rumor from Tiempo de Juego, a Spanish news source, who says that NYCFC is interested in 28-year-old forward Carlos Lopez and Juan Carlos at Juan_C71.
Yeah.
The rumor of a second forward in the NYCFC radar. Technically, it would be our first if you count Mitrita.
Yeah.
Can we actually hope that we play a 4-4-2 formation, or does this mean a possible false 9 might be in the works? The 4-3-2-1 formation is also a possibility. Thoughts before you go?
Sure.
Tactics. I would like to know what your starting 11 with the team that we have as of today would be on game 1, and then go ahead and answer Juan's.
Yeah. So funny you ask. I'm obviously working on my own stuff that come out in the preseason and all that silly stuff, and working with some people on an interesting project, which I'll plug later. But I've given a lot of thought. Obviously, any kind of roster improvement is going to change how I view it. But sticking with the philosophies that we kind of touched on earlier of CFG, Dome, and even what NYCFC has built, since Vieira, the idea that we're going to stray away from a 4-3-3 is pretty silly. Which made me laugh about this, Twitter question of just like a 4-4-2. I'm like, I don't know if NYC has ever lined up in a 4-4-2, ever, even under Christ. So it's going to be a 4-3-3. I'm a big Mata believer. It's the only jersey I own. So he's going to be my starting left back. It's going to be Collins in left center back, Chanot at right center back, and Tinnerholm at right back. And then it's going to be Ring at center defensive midfielder at the base of my midfield three. I'm going to have Medina and Keaton Parks in front of him as kind of strong number 8s, running those channels, kind of like what we saw in that preseason game of not being afraid of getting up early and putting pressure on whatever the deepest playmakers are. And I'm going to have Matrizia on the left. And then I'm going to have Shradi on the right. And then I'm going to have Maxi playing, center forward type of thing.
Yeah.
With the understanding that, that front three and even Medina there as well are going to be, as long as their defensive responsibilities are within check, free rotates. I think that is currently constructed. I think that's our best roster to keep the ball. I bet we're planning to keep 60 to 65% of the ball this year, and create chances off of that.
All right, there you have it. I love it. I think that's a really good formation. I don't see any players that I would say, "Oh, why'd you leave this person out?" Because you've got Lewis coming off the bench, which he has been doing his whole time with us, and including with the men's national team. And then you have Torres, I guess, coming off the bench as well as a possibility. You have Ben Sweat to come in as a center back, Ibiaga as a center back as well. I like
and that's not to knock Ben Sweat or Ibiaga. I think what's going on right now is I think Dome has gotten into Sweat's ear and has been like, you don't have all the assets and attributes that a left back can have to succeed at the upcoming levels, but Ben Sweat as a left center back could make a lot of money. He's good on the ball. It removes some of his propensity to dive in at terrible tackles and get burned by players that are much quicker than him. And so I think they're trying some kind of not experiment there, but I definitely see Sweat as he's going to get minutes between left back and left center back, depending on the matchup that Dome sees. And I love Ibiaga. I think he's secretly one of the best signings that NYC has ever had on like a production to salary thing. It's not even close, I don't think. And he kept that team together when Chanot was hurt last year. You talk about us, faltering at the end of the season or the middle of the season. If we didn't have Ibiaga, that team would have fallen apart really bad.
Yeah.
Ring would have been playing center back. Our midfield would have been a disaster. I'm a big fan of both of them. Yeah. And so like the hottest take I think on my formation is, starting, Mata over Sweat, but I'll fight that all day from Costa Rican.
Or Parks over Ofori.
Yeah, I think again that's going to be situational, but like I just think Keaton brings more to the table than Ofori in terms of like all the attributes. Now, if we're packing it in against whatever team Dome views that we don't have the punch and power for, we want to sit back more for, I think Ofori is going to play. But I see Ofori as a late game defensive substitute, taking out Medina or Maxi. And making that midfield three, much more defensive oriented. than, I think how he wants to come out the gate for the first 70, 75 minutes of the game.
Perfect. Yeah. And quick reminder, this is the NYCFC Nation podcast. I've got first-time guest at NYCFCTactics with us. Just gave us our 2019 formation. I'm pretty sure that's going to be an accurate, maybe one player off starting 11.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no, I think you're great at determining the formation that we play each match. Speaking of matches that we played, we just did play against FC Copenhagen. We lost 2-0. Our next upcoming match is on Friday against AIK. Yep. And you did talk about Parks, and you do see him as a starter. What is it that you saw about Parks during the FC Copenhagen game that you liked?
I don't want to start too narrow. I think he fits in well with the overall team composition, as I kind of touched upon, with whether it be his height, his technical skills. He's played, at Benfica B, and the limited minutes he played with the big boy team at Benfica. He's played, a little bit more of a deeper role in terms of defensive responsibilities, and I think he's just gonna do work there. I'm not saying that. I think he has to prove himself in the preseason, but what I've seen so far, he's very capable. I've seen a lot of Rocha play, as much as that tape exists. Not really into it. I haven't seen enough of Juan Pablo Torres at all. If you compare it to halves, Torres, his partners on the right side of that, field was Schrade and Tinnerholm, and Parks had Petkovic and Scally, and Parks looked way better. So if you partner Parks with Schrade and Tinnerholm, that's a really interesting, strong right side of the field. Talking about team comps and stuff like that. So I just, I'm going off of 45 minutes a piece here, but it's something that I think to look for in the next, the upcoming preseason game is, how does Parks play, and what is he being paired with around him? What unit is he running with? And on top of that, maybe it's Torres and Parks this time around in the midfield, and, maybe that actually works. It's going to be interesting to see, the chemistry evolve there.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Friday's match. I'll be awake to watch it. I think it's like at 6 in the morning or 6:30.
It's like maybe 7 or something like that.
Is it? Okay. A little bit better.
As long as it gets close to when the sun's up, I'm okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, actually 8 a.m. Sorry.
Woo!
According to my synced NYCFC calendar on my phone, 8 a.m. is the game time on Friday.
I think I can do it.
Too bad. Yeah, I think we should be able to do it. People who are going to work, they might miss it, but whatever. We're going to wrap up the show here with final fan questions. There's pretty sporadic, so we'll go at one by one. This one from @Gene 14800846. Sounds like a phone number. Yeah. There's no way David Villa is getting a USL team and a stadium deal all by himself. If NYCFC isn't working behind the scenes as a backer, then who could it be? LOL, seeing that the fake Cosmos are dead as a doornail, could it be Rocco attempting to be relevant? So if you heard the news about Willet's Point development was sent out, and there was a stadium proposal in that development for that rezoning area. And of course, earlier in the year, or earlier last year, you saw David Villa with two prominent Queens, I guess, I don't know. Politicians, yeah. Standing in front of a stadium. So what do you think this is all about? And what do you think about Gene's question here?
Yeah, I think what we've learned, and granted, like, I'm super frustrated with it as well, like any fan, but, I try to look at the shinier things. CFG and NYCFC are not very communicative about anything. I had some friends, on the ticket sales side, and they're like, yeah, good luck getting anything ever. And so I definitely think it's a possibility that Willits is potentially an NYCFC location. I don't think it's Rocco at all. I think there's some interesting leverage happening with David Villa there. And star power is a real thing, and it helps things get passed and teams get built. So, I'm not surprised that he's attached to that, whether it be, as a proxy for NYCFC or as his own new project.
Yeah. I like where you're thinking. Yep.
Yeah. So, maybe this is a little bit of a sandbox, a soapbox that I can stand on. I think that the stadium's going to be roughly 20,000 to 25,000. I think land development in New York City is like super, super, super hard, especially if you start using public land. Because, as we're seeing with Amazon trying to get into Queens, like there's going to be a fight no matter what. Yep. People want the stadium, people don't want the stadium. So it's going to be really complicated. And, some of the keeping it quiet keeps costs down in terms of land and the political costs as well. So I would say be mildly optimistic, but at the same time, like, don't go buy an apartment next to Willets Point so you can walk to the stadium, like, don't do that. And
if you do, make sure you call me.
Yeah, for sure. I want to get in on that. But yeah, like, I'm optimistic, I don't read a lot into conspiracy about it, but at the same time, I think it's all possible, except for the Rocco thing. I think the Cosmo thing is stupid.
Yeah. I mean, everything could be possible, right? When we're not given enough information or no information at all, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
And could it be like CFG was like, hey, we can't buy it with our owner being who he is in New York City, but we could create a separate entity and give you the money for it.
Yeah. I think you're not wrong. It's again, that adds a whole nother layer of complication to it, and risk exposure for that investment group, right? I don't want to get like into the technical background of everything, but like legal things going forward are hard. So yeah, totally possible. And as we've learned, CFG's and NYCFC's not going to tell you anything until it's the day of, and what little leaks come out to those of us who devote a lot of time to this stuff, we'll let you know when we know. Promise you.
Exactly.
I'm not hiding something from you. If I knew, I'd tell you. So.
My follow-up question to that would be: let's say a stadium does happen in Willets Point,
yeah,
and it has nothing to do with CFG or NYCFC. Would you rather NYCFC continue to play in Yankee Stadium, or loan or rent out at that soccer stadium?
I do love my season tickets a lot. They're great. They're covered. They're comfy. They're just close enough to the supporter section I can hear them. But I completely, I bitch about it all the time of how weirdly small that field is, how it's actually incongruous with our playing style. That field's built for a team that wants to mash the ball in, with a big meaty forehead. That field's not built for small people whipping the ball around. So I would probably want to rent, or whatever we want to call it, lease or participate in. And I think that would be a strong move. I think my only note in the whole stadium thing is, as long as they don't play, more than a game a season outside of outside of the 5 boroughs, I really don't care. I think has far more to do with how I'd be angry as a fan than, whether what we call home, whether it be a baseball stadium or, quote unquote, someone else's stadium. Yeah. I think we're also going to be, even if we get our own stadium, like, we're going to be renting that place out to everyone and, everything. Like, there'll be plenty of congestion and noise and,
absolutely,
a potential US Open Cup being canceled because, a Pitbull concert's happening in, the venue, right? Like, anything's possible. There isn't, some perfect grass is green situation on the other side. So just trying to be optimistic all the way through.
It's funny. Like, I'm thinking about the other possibility is of, so here we are talking about David Villa possibly getting this Queens Stadium established. And I could only imagine the other side of a negotiation where Villa wanted to stay in New York City FC. This is just me in my own mind. And NYCFC is like, no, Villa, we're not going to pay you the amount you want. He's like, you know what? You're going to pay me when I get the fucking Queens Stadium.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pay rent to me. So you don't have to pay it now. You'll pay it later.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a saucy conspiracy possible there. And
yeah, right.
like, I'll like those tweets, but at the same time, like, that sounds so out of character of David.
Of course.
Like, that's also not how CFG operates. They take care of their own pretty hard. So, I think the real thing came up is like they didn't think it was healthy to keep running David Villa out there every day as NYCFC, and I feel like they're also his massive salary as a DP was potentially holding the team back in terms of imagine if he gets hurt in the first 2 weeks of the season like last year, and it's just like, are we going to go through this again? Are we
took its toll,
yeah, are we going to go through a season with less than 3 DPs? Like we've seen how that's can be a real burden.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer my question that I asked you, if this Queensboro Stadium or Queens FC Stadium, whatever you want to call it, happens, I would love for NYCFC to play there. Granted, this is a very selfish reason. It would be quote unquote in my backyard. I could walk to the stadium, whereas going to Yankee Stadium, especially on the weekends, it totally sucks. But I still do the commute, whether or not it happens in the Bronx or in Queens. As long as it's not on Staten Island, I'm happy with it. But guess what? Even if it wasn't Staten Island, I would try to attend as many games, except I would, obviously you have to drive there. But yeah, I have to imagine that if the stadium does happen, NYCFC has to be a part of it, whether they're a player in it or they're getting it as a lease, because they can't play in a baseball stadium anymore. Like I could just imagine how embarrassing it would be when we finally make the Gold. Is it the Gold Cup? No, is it the Gold Cup? No,
no, the
CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah, the Champions League thing.
Like imagine them having a home game at Yankee Stadium, or having to go to another Connecticut stadium, or God forbid Red Bull Arena. Like I could not imagine how embarrassing that would be. So if there was a soccer stadium specific one, even if it is 10K or 15K, whatever, have NYCFC loan it. I know that a lot of people don't like that idea, but hey, you can.
And by the way, like here comes the thing that I've my daydream of looking at Google Maps and all that stuff is I don't understand like Columbia University at the northern tip of Manhattan. I always screw up that neighborhood. Inwood,
yeah. Upstate Manhattan, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a while from the East Village to get up there, but they have a big stadium up there, and I don't understand why we don't play games there. Whether it be U.S. Open stuff or anything that conflicts with it's right proximity close. Yeah. It'd be super interesting, super New York. As long as we're talking stadiums, like that's
in Manhattan,
yeah, it would always be out, just over the line in Manhattan, but in Manhattan. Yeah, that was always my pipe dream. If we're talking stadiums and stuff like that, yeah. I would, instead of taking the NYCFC, extracurricular fixtures on the road, why not do something like that?
Yeah, good point. Let's move to the next question here.
Sure.
From @Neil Montavani. After the slew of older DPs, we now have the younger DPs and players we wanted. How much patience should we have with these new players under a new system and with an inexperienced coach? Follow-up, does the influx of better American players finally lead to a solid U.S. Open Cup run? One can hope.
Yeah. I'll take the last one first. I do think, I think in terms of roster composition and Reyna's job, I think they became really apparent last year that a lot of the roster was super international and made moves much harder. I think was part of the reason why Bedoya was brought into camp. I think he was on the bench for an Open Cup or something like that. It's been very obvious NYCFC has not really respected the Open Cup as a competition since Vieira.
Yeah, along with our 3 extra goalkeepers on the bench.
Yeah, it's been kind of shitty. So I do think we're gonna field a far more competitive team. I hope we
win a game.
Yeah, I don't want to wish for Poku again, but man, did he have some fire in that one at least?
Yeah.
Miss that guy. Such an enigma. But yeah, so I think there's like it can only help, and especially with the way the tournament's set up, where the first couple games are regionally based. So I think Hack and Scally and Sands.
I think that's where they're going to get most of
their can get some minutes, and especially if those guys are balling out or just doing well in practice, but Ring or Tinner home or in the way, I think that's where we're going to find minutes for them to shine, take their opportunity. I do find the other part of that of like with an inexperienced coach, I find that kind of offensive. Dome is a really, really has a great pedigree. Now I understand he's never been a head coach before.
He has way back in the day.
Yeah. Recently, let's say that.
Not recently,
yeah, and without the same acclaim that his other accolades have brought him, of being Pep's right hand man.
Yep. You can never get that rid of. Like it's always implemented. It's stamped in his.
Yeah, it's going to be in his CV forever. So I love the ask of it all, of like how much patience. I'm like, always have patience, man. Like,
Well, I think they're asking. I think he's asking this question, Neil, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's like, what are the expectations? Maybe
exactly. Right? What are your expectations? Because with that question, I'm thinking Neil is gonna say, or thinking we're maybe just above a 500 team.
Yeah, I don't see that. So yeah, I'll answer it that way. I have high hopes for this team. Wayne Rooney's another year older. Acosta might be out, potentially on the way out, already out, depending on what time you listen to this. Giovinco's gone. What? Altidore is no longer there. Atlanta sold its the player that scored 2 goals against us in the playoffs.
And they have a new coach. They have a new system.
Yeah, it's like guys are like, it's like we're just as solid as the other people that we fight with, right? Mm-hmm. Bradley's another year older. Altidore's a hamstring pop away from never playing again.
Philly's still Philly, yeah.
I mean, love beating the Philadelphia Union. Orlando's still a dumpster fire. So yeah, like I understand in a vacuum, it feels like we went backwards. Losing like the club captain and the all-time goal scorer leader, but at the same time, like we've gotten younger, we've gotten faster, we've got more versatile. To say that we're not a top 4 team in the East would be silly. Columbus lost its head coach. Like, there's lots of breathing room in the Eastern Conference to get in. And I think if in this preseason we develop a pattern where, it's understandable how we're going to score goals consistently, and then, I think we're going to hit the ground running pretty hard. And I think against a well-drilled team like us, especially for the West Coast teams that come, we're going to be eating up points. I think, and Dome has another year to understand the impact of travel and all that fun stuff. So, like, to kind of get back to the root of the questions, is like, I have high expectations, but obviously at the same time, like, and I like this about the club, like we're implementing a style, and like it's very understandable what we're trying. And we're not, it's not, Bill Belichick on to the next week, right? Like it's like, no, this is how NYCFC plays. This is how we think soccer is beautiful. And whether that's brand building or whatever silly words you want to put in front of it, like I think that has a lot of value, and I think to respect that process, right? And I think it means a lot. So yeah, I have patience, but at the same time, like have patience in the way that it's like you expected them to win. And if they're not committing to a long-term strategy and it doesn't make sense, the game-to-game moves, then like, yeah, let's start screaming and shouting.
Yeah, you always need to have patience with the team and the new season. Obviously, we have a slew of new players. I don't know if we're probably maybe Roddy, when you're listening to this, what's our average age now compared to 2015 and compared to last year? It's significantly younger. Yeah, I wonder how that compares to the rest of the league as well. When you have 19-year-olds or 21-year-olds or 23-year-olds coming into a new system, which is CFG, there has to be some patience and understanding. But what I'm hopeful for is this is Domez's first full year to really understand what he wants. Last year, half a season, he came in, started, first game was against the Red Bulls, I believe, or was it the second game and we won? And then he started to tinker and things changed. But now he has, quote unquote, the players that he wants for the system that he wants to run. And I'm not saying that he has all the pieces, because in his last interview, he mentioned how having a striker in MLS is very important. Someone who's there to score goals in the box is very important, and they're going to take time. He literally said in the video, summertime, we need to choose the right player. So having that quote unquote striker or forward that everyone wants may not happen until the summer. But I am hopeful, and I do see I do see a lot of positive growth with the team and a shift. If you think about the DPs, we had Lampard, Villa, Pirlo. Now we have Maxi, Betrita, and Medina. The triple M's. Like
the M&M boys.
M&M boys, there you go. Like who are these? You can see the shift. And I'm hopeful about that. I'm happy that it's a younger team. I'm happy that the team is growing, and I'm happy that we still keep players like Ring, Chanel, who, last year when we released the drop that he may be leaving, and he declined that rumor, he admitted it during the interview that, he may have left. So I was like, okay, he admitted it finally. But the team worked with him because they realized how good of a player he is, and how, philosophy and I guess team structure and team philosophy is, hey, we want to keep the players who want to be with us, and they gave him time to stay with us. So I like that growth that's happening within our structures little by little. And what is this, year 5? Year 4? Yeah. So
and in almost like an Ario way fashion, I soothe myself to sleep. It's just like, I go through the lineup I mentioned earlier. It's like Tinnerholm is a top right back in the MLS.
Yep.
Period. Chanot and Collins is a great experienced back line that can play out their feet and are physical. Mata / Ben Sweat, that's always been the question mark for this team for the back five, but like whatever. Sean Johnson's a good goalkeeper, period. Ring, all-star. He's one of the best center defensive midfielders in MLS. Max Morales was an MVP candidate last year. You start, and then Izzy Shradi, like when healthy and when getting fed, is one of the most potent wingers in MLS.
Yep.
And then you add, 2 DPs that given playing time and are young with Matrizia and Medina, potential to do really cool things. And then you're adding in, the question mark is you're adding in youthful American soccer players that have been abroad and now are coming back. Like, that's what gives me confidence. And that's what gives me like, all right, it's not the end of the world, but like, we're doing stuff and we're building, as you kind of said, 5-year mark, like a really weirdly solid foundation of good quality talent.
Yeah. And our youth system is 5 years older,
kicking
right?
in.
So it's starting to kick in little by little. So there's a lot of growth opportunity. There's a lot of quote unquote potential with this team. And so patience should always be there, except we're New Yorkers. We don't have.
Yeah, dude, I get it, man. Like I get angry at the L all the time, man. I yell at it. Like I get it. I get mad at Subways.
Oh man. So talking about getting mad, Tommy at NYCFC Firm asks about the banned fascist skinheads who plan on returning to the supporter section this year, where they have lots of friends. He wants to know, what are we doing about it?
Yeah, man, like
total turn of conversation.
Yeah, welcome to the dark stuff. Midnight hour. Yeah, man, like I don't know. I feel like in the age of the internet and everything's on the record, I just got to come out and be like, yeah, don't like it. It's bad.
Yeah.
I know it's been a complicated relationship with the supporters groups and NYCFC fans with, stadium security and stuff like that. And there's some weird allegiances there. I don't think they fully understood what they got when they, took a NYCFC as a tenant.
Like, sure, more money. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, for sure. But like, politics show up in all sports, and it sucks. But at the same time, like, whether it be the current racist stuff that was happening at Chelsea to, some of the Eastern European stuff of like, entire stadiums having to be played empty for fans. Like, hopefully we can, self-police enough in like a friendly, not friendly manner, but like a direct manner of just like, hey, dude, like, don't fucking do that. And if you're banned, then like call somebody out. I don't, not to steal a Bloomberg line, but like if you see something, say something, man. Like,
oh, we're gonna get sued for that now.
Yeah, damn it. Not Bloomberg. But yeah, like I agree. It's really frustrating, to see, that part of your fandom or people taking your colors and using them for ill. But at the same time, like, celebrate the other stuff, all the awesome community service that we do as a collective fan group, and try to do through the right channels as possible, call that bullshit out, and make sure it's understood that we don't care for it. Like, it's not, to me, it's easy to say, but super hard in execution. It's something to think about for sure.
It's definitely something to think about. I think you said everything well said here. I want to add, Tommy has been really on it regarding this topic, and it's a hard topic to talk about because, one, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything that's going on.
For
Two,
sure.
when those photos of the images of these people came out, I had a really in-depth NYCFC conversation with one of them way before this ever came out, and I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that. So I also wonder how many other fans don't know that, and whether or not they do and they want to do something about it, it's up to them. I do know a lot of supporters who I'm pretty good friends with weren't aware of it as well, and then when they were, realizing who these people were or what they do or what they believe in, started to step aside. So I think another trademark, knowledge is power, or what is it, the more you know, that other trademark.
Reading rainbow.
The reading rainbow, yeah, there we go. I think with understanding and being informative helps a lot of people decide on what they want to do. What am I going to do? I don't sit in the supporter section. I go to the games with my father. I go there in the supporter section for really big games where we want to get drenched with beer, and I don't need to go to the press box that day or that night, so I don't reek like alcohol. So I mean, it's a touchy subject, and I think just the more people know, the more knowledge that's given to them, they have the right to decide of what route to take. Some of these people might be family friends for other people, and maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had there, but that's not something that I can do. That's not something that you can say as well at NYCFCTactics. But hopefully more knowledge is helpful for everyone here. That said, flip the script. Blue City Radio wants to know, what is your favorite non-soccer hobby?
Oh man, favorite. I love video games. I play a lot of video games. Thank you for asking. I really got into Fortnite recently. I'm old, so it's kind of funny. Trying to still be a kid. And
right,
then
how old is old?
Too old to play Fortnite. Too old. I'm out of the demo. But then I also play Civilization, which is like a turn-based strategy game. Love that. That's my like lazy like Saturday game that I'll play.
Number 6 is coming out, right? Or
like a new expansion for it, which I'm pretty excited about actually. And then
I remember Civilization when it used to be on PC with like DOS. Like it was like pixelated, and you have to go left and right and up and down, and it's changed a lot. Yeah.
Back when I actually understood how computers worked. Dude, so silly. But yeah, besides that, like super into art, go to a lot of museums and stuff like that. Frequent friends, art galleries and stuff like that. Like super into that stuff. So but soccer is a big part of my life. So I like that question. It's very funny. It's like I had that moment when I saw that tweet today. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna answer this. I devote a lot of time to this nonsense.
All right, fair enough, man. Next question from at JL1179, John Levin. If Carlitos Lopez or a different TAM CF center forward is signed in the next week, we'll be out of international spots. That probably means the roster is pretty much set. How would you grade the season for NYCFC, the off season for NYCFC. He gives it a solid B.
Yeah, he's kind of I've always been an easy grader in the fact that I'll pass you, but I'll never give you an A. I was that annoying middle school teacher. Drove the bookworms crazy. Always screwing up the curve. I'm between B and B plus. A lot of stuff has to come to fruition, but if you're telling me, gun to my head right now to steal a Bill Simmons euphemism, probably a B. Yeah, I think he's right. Like we've acquired a lot of talent. Now it's not super proven talent. It's not like leading the marquee talent. I don't suspect our attendance will be shooting through the roof. Right. With anything that's currently on the roster. But I think, there's hopefully I've kind of shown through this whole podcast that I see a route for this to go very well. I think there's we're giving ourselves a lot of chances and, with the potential for injury and all the other stuff and suspensions and international duty, we have a deep roster that can play a multitude of styles, which is, what you got to look for, especially for a team, run by Dome.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I would say solid B as well for me, maybe even an A minus. And the reason why I would upgrade it is because, again, I didn't want older players. I wanted young players. I wanted more players that could compete in the U.S. Open Cup. And hey, we got young American players who would most likely, at least maybe not compete, but play in the U.S. Open Cup. Granted, they could all stink. And they could all be superstars, including our DP, including, the players that we're going to get in the summer. But yeah, I'd say this offseason, after months of or maybe it's just 1 month or 2 months, but after seeing what everyone else in the league has done or who are signed and all the Almiron stuff. And I'm like, God, NYC all has Roca or Rocha. That's it.
I'm with you. And the draft went by and I was like, oh God, guys, this isn't going to go great.
Of course we got a goalkeeper in the draft.
But by the way, I did want to call him out. He's really good. And I would fear for my job if I was Caldwell and Stuver. But is it Baraza? I always screwed up, but he's very good with his feet. And just on that skill alone, I think he's better than Sean Johnson with his feet, which isn't that hard to do. But that's my low key. One of my other call outs is I think he's going to get more, backups or maybe an Open Cup run than, what you think out there. I also think we're getting rid of Stuver.
Well, I mentioned that earlier when I heard about the draft pick, and I was like, of all the goalkeepers we have on our list, the most sellable obviously would be Sean Johnson, but you want to keep him as much as possible for as long as possible. But the most sellable would be Stuver,
sure.
Especially for the summertime. If we can add more TAM, GAM, or whatever that crap the spelling is for the last stuff,
Garber bucks.
Yeah, Garber bucks. We can trade a player who has been in the MLS, American, is not super expensive, and could possibly be a starter in some MLS teams. Why not?
Yeah, and goalkeepers are always just an injury away, right? Yep. It's a weird position in terms of depth and the way people roster teams. And just to get back to one of the things I used to calm myself down about, the roster building, all that stuff is go look at the Vancouver Whitecaps. Their team, their fans are lighting themselves on fire. I don't even think they have their third DP. I don't think they're even talking about it. I wouldn't be surprised if they went into next season without a third DP at all.
Well, that was almost us.
Yeah, yes, I don't want to talk about it too loudly. We solved that one. But no, that, if you're looking for some schadenfreude, then go that way. It's fascinating.
Next question from Eddie Andujar. Eddie and you, at Eddie and you. What books, blogs can I read to get a better understanding of the tactics and strategies employed in a game? Trying to educate myself as a relatively new fan. I, for one, have not read any soccer tactic books or blogs. It's not my... it's not fun for me. It's just, I played soccer almost my entire life. So that's where I get the tactics, learning from the coaches that have coached me and explaining to me when I used to be a winger to central defensive midfield to be the philosophy of defending and moving the ball. And then I portray that by watching a lot of games. But at the Dummy Run, who was on our episode last year, on our podcast last year, replies with that saying that I am sure the guys, which will be at NYCFCTactics, will have their own answers, but at Jonathan Wilson's Inverting the Pyramid, at zonal_markings work, and at Spyvercom are basically the canon to get you started reading about tactics. Which when I went to those links and those Twitter accounts, they are very soccer tactic savvy guys like yourself, NYCFCTactics.
Thanks, man.
So, what do you do? What do you recommend for Eddie and anyone who wants to learn more about strategies and philosophies in the game?
So the way I got really into it was zonal marking. I think it was like 9 years ago. Zonalmarking.net, which is a hysterical URL, is this English guy, Michael Cox. He would break down pretty much any big game in Europe and, showcase player movement in a really interesting way and write about it. And it's where I picked up a lot of my vocab. So it's really funny that, Dummy, pipes me again. And, he was like, gives out, what I would immediately be like, just go read, and his website's up. His catalog is all there. Just like deep dive on everything. He has teams of the decade where you can be like, oh, whatever. And, it's really cool. And you can search player names. It's a really powerful tool. He is right with Jonathan Wilson's Inverting the Pyramid. That was another one. I went through a period also where I would buy like translated Italian tactical books. As someone who's part Italian, I've always been obsessed with Italian defenses because I think it's just this mythical thing that's actually real. It's like seeing a unicorn every time. They're like, Italian defenses don't break, and then they don't break, and I'm like, what's happening? So anything on Catenaccio and stuff like that. And yes, Dummy has to put in Spielvercom, but there's a lot of interesting stuff. I'll do a lot. I'll try to do a better job of retweeting stuff that like tickles my fancy. I know the ASA guys, Elliot McKinley, have been doing some really interesting stuff. That's a lot more like data heavy. Mm-hmm. I think starting with, a word that you see that I tweet out, whether it's like trequartista or, an inverted winger or a false number 9 or, the new one that Dummy and I are batting around is an inside fullback, right? Google those terms, figure it out, go from there, ask questions of people like Dummy and me. And, that's actually how information gets shared super quickly. But also there's specifically for the NYCFC team, there's a book called Morbo, The Story of Spanish Football. And it's about the golden generation that they had, where it's this whole rise of the Iniestas and the Yavis of the world, where, I think they started a World Cup final with like 8 midfielders or something like that. And so it gives this nice little history angle while at the same time, like explaining this, the systems and the influences that Dome had and Pep had, and the people who are the bedrock of CFG in terms of the football side. So that would be a good place to start as well.
All right, there you go. Now, so talking about doing and doing some research and writing and reading up on it, you hinted earlier that you were doing some stuff. Want to plug that stuff now?
Yeah, sure.
What's going on?
I can say that it's going to come out before the beginning of the season. It's going to be a place where there's going to be some more longer form stuff from me and some, other smart people. It's going to be a little bit more, I think was the tagline we were all talking about. It's like, good soccer coming soon to an internet near you. Like we're going to be sassy. We're going to try and be funny, but at the same time relatable about, really complex topics or, something a little bit more basic than like the team won, and kind of what you reached upon of like being an asset to the community, of being like explaining something or, like, hey, I know you're a fan really of this. So, let me use that language to describe something more complex to you. And so, yeah, it's coming out soon. It's gonna be really interesting. Just, follow me on Twitter. I definitely will be tweeting stuff out once a week about it at a minimum. I think you'll see a lot of friendly faces when it launches. But yeah, it'll be a good place. feedback always is, accepted. We might not listen to you, but we'll accept it. But yeah, it's going to be a good thing. And yeah, hopefully, this longer format will allow, a deeper understanding of not only the team, but, people who are interested in, translating and, when they go down and, they travel abroad or they talk to other MLS fans, like showcase why NYCFC is different and interesting and worth rooting for, right? It's definitely a place that seems to be committed to a philosophy and a style and can be part of the bedrock of, why the club is awesome and interesting and worth rooting for.
I love it. I love that. And make sure you tag us so we can retweet it out.
No questions. We'll do.
But yeah, looking forward to that. And I don't mean to say and I love when fans of the team create content. There's lack of soccer news or data or just interesting stuff to read or listen to that's not already owned by a corporate company. Copa 90 and all the other stuff are great, but it's just like, eh.
And then, I'll also use this platform to, I shot out a question, a thing recently, I think it was, drunk coming back from a bar or something. So I don't know if I remember all of it properly, but, as a season ticket holder and the tensions of getting a club, and I know there's been a lot of angst and, all that stuff. Like, I definitely think, especially with your guys' wider audience, like there's an appetite for, something outside of, supporters groups and those specific cultures, but, banding together as an entire collective to kind of hold the club accountable. And that's something I'm super interested in. I don't have the time right now to do it, but, if anyone's interested in that stuff, whether, it's a fan union or I think someone, called an association in my, mentions, super interested in that. And, as long as it's not a corporation or, anyone tell them, directly what to do, with any legal stuff, then I'm all on board. But yeah, I think, I agree with you. I think there need to be more voices. I think there need to be more people willing to share them. But also the return of that is it's not a vacuum to yell into. It's a place for discussion, or, we would like it to hope to be. So, always ask the question, but, don't get angry when it's not the answer you want.
Perfect. Perfectly said. Last 3 questions before you wrap up the show. Antonio Rojas, any way we can have an NYCFC theme song? And if so, why it should be I Want It That Way? Now, that's pretty much sure the Backstreet Boys song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It is a great song. It's an old song. I'll think about that, Antonio. But what are your thoughts on a different theme song for NYCFC Nation?
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean,
which means more work on my end, but yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be in my my head for musical choices. I had to ask a couple people today. I was like, who's this artist? And they're like, they're performing on SNL this week, and I'm like, I have no fucking clue who that is.
I'm probably on the same boat. Yeah.
yeah, but it was just that I was like, oh, I'm an old now. I'm a real old. Yeah. My joke answer is I've been super interested in jazz music that had didgeridoos in it, so maybe that.
Okay.
but no, I mean, I'm down for any of the classics of just rah rah, get you going, good pump up music, anything like jock jams. I'm all on board for that. I think 90s pop music was close to it, so I'm here for it.
Sounds like 90s to me. All right. Final 2 questions from Cabri Valencia. Who will be the primary penalty taker now that V is gone? And who will be the primary free kick taker to add to that, I'd say?
Yeah, I think, off the bat, I'd be surprised if it isn't Maxi for both.
Penalty? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He's a great striker of the ball. I weirdly think a lot of...
I want to rephrase that because I don't think he's a great striker of the ball, because there's been some shots he's taken where it's gone.
Sure, maybe a poised. Poised. Let's use that word. Yeah, I mean, I sit close enough to realize that sometimes it ricochets off of him. Spider-Man. But yeah, I think he's going to be the guy. I think Matrizia and him are going to sit over the ball a decent amount. Weirdly, I also think they like Mata on.
Yeah, he took that free kick, right?
Yeah, on anything that's a left-footed swinger. He has this really interesting ability to have like a really high cross that travels at velocity. It's almost like a backspin, almost like a ping pong kind of way. where he's punching down on it with his left foot. It usually gets near the back post, so like be on the lookout for that. Don't take that if you're a fan of the other team. But yeah, I would say Maxi first. I could see it being Matrizia, but at the same time, I think that's a seniority thing. I think that's also like a culture thing. I think that's a way for Dome and all those to like gas up the right people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if we get a penalty shot in game, I'd say the number one person in my mind would be Maxi. As you said, poised. I think he's very accurate in that close range.
Yeah, fair point.
And it might not be a powerful shot, but I think it'll be an accurate shot to where he wants to take it. It could be a soft shot as well, which could be blocked. But I think if I had to bet money, I would bet my money on Maxi being that penalty kick taker. Free kick taker, I don't think it's Maxi, depending on the range. I think Mitrita, as you said, I think Medina took a few, maybe the first year when he joined us. I don't think he took any last year. And of course, if it's a long free kick, we got Ring back there as well, who usually crosses them in. Yep. But on top of the box, I'm having a hard time seeing who that be until.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to see some people play. Like, I've always, if it's a line drive, I think it's Ring in my book, but that's a rare and far in between thing.
So final question of the show coming from @Bronx_Blues. Reina and Torrent both said that there are going to be summer signings. Given that we play Chicago, Orlando, DC, and Montreal all twice, as well as Philly by July 1st, can NYCFC be in a decent enough position standing-wise by the time the summer transfer window hits with our current roster? I say yes. It's just
and what I like about it is they did their homework and they're like, we're playing a lot of East teams, where we got to set that tempo. It's very obvious to me at the end of the season last year that Dome punted on all our Western Conference opponents and focused only on our Eastern Conference ones. So I think he's very apparent of that. I think, that's another angle of his tactical and professorial kind of brain where, I think he's going to be very aware of who he has to beat to guarantee that we make playoffs. I think we're going to be in a good spot. I also want to call out, I don't want this, potential summer signing to be like this, we're going to get the best players ever, Higuain, we're going to get him. Like, guys, calm down. I think there's some interesting moves to be made. I think, as I kind of referenced earlier, I think weirdly Jonathan Lewis is kind of on the table for us to offload. I don't think there's going to be especially if NYCFC view him as like kind of not damaged goods, but not filling up to his potential. I think it's a real sell high moment for us, or at least in their viewpoint. And I also think that could fund some really interesting things to happen in summer. I think we'll be in a good spot. I don't think there's going to be a lot of signings. I think, maybe in the summer we might have 2 tops, and that will be dependent on injury, obviously. Mm-hmm. But if you look at our roster right now, there's lots of players that are going to that need minutes. And so it's, if you're in a situation like that, unless you're bringing in, a purebred in front of them, there's no real point in signing somebody to sign somebody. So.
Yeah, and it can't be someone like Higuain because we got 3 DPs. There's no way we could bring him in.
Yeah, super complicated, or at least by our dumb rules.
Right.
I've heard rumors of 4 DPs, and you're buying down one of your one of the third DPs. Right. Like, until someone can explain it to me, I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Sorry for reversing, but yeah, like it's I have hopes, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of talent on the table, and I think we can make it work.
And as you said earlier, Chicago, Orlando, DC, Montreal, Philly, those are 5 teams. That's 10 games right there that should be, I don't want to say easily handled because every game has its own issues. Every game is competitive, but those are teams that we should beat. And those are teams with our current roster that we both believe, at least us two, that NYCFC should beat against. And with 10 games, that's 30 points right before half season. And I think that's a pretty good, starting mark. Of course, tying here and losing there would happen as well. But and playing the Red Bulls and Atlanta as well are different questions. But it's a good season so far, a good schedule from what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And roster wise, yeah.
Yeah, my whole rule of thumb for all that stuff, and I think I did it last year, so part of my shtick is just like, as long as we're averaging 2 points a game, we're golden. And so I like the way Bronx Blues was attacking it, of being like, hey, these are the teams we got to beat. And, if he's operating or they're operating under the modus operandi of like, we're not that talented right now with our current roster, or that we're going to have difficulties. Like, yeah, it's a really smart approach of being like, well, we got to figure out how to beat them. I think we have one of the more interesting coaches in terms of game planning against opponents. I think it's Bearhalter last year was pretty tactically adept. Who else was out there that I really was scared of? Caleb Porter, I get, not really. Bradley was doing something really weird and interesting last year with 3 midfielders that none of them had direct defensive responsibilities. I'm always scared of him. He's very smart. And then obviously Martinez in Atlanta. I think I just screwed that up. Did I?
No. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, man. But yeah, like I'm here for it. I think we're going to be in not the driver's seat, but we're going to be near the front. And as long as we can build something up around end of the season, be in the top 4, push for home field advantage. I think it's a job well done, especially if we start getting these young guys a lot of minutes. If James Sands becomes a big deal, then like I'm here for it, man. Like whatever it takes. I think that's going to be an awesome story.
It will. It will be. NYCFCTactics on Twitter. Thank you again for joining me. 2019 is your first time with us. Hopefully not the last. Love to have you on. Love your analysis. Love the nerdiness part, because that definitely is not one of my it's not my MO. I don't like it. I love it when other people do it. I'm like, oh, that's so great. But yeah, any final remarks you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, man. Keep supporting people that do interesting stuff around the stuff you love. Obviously in this, it's NYCFC, but if it's a friend that's doing art, or if it's, a friend who has a concert, go support them. It means a lot to people. And yeah, just keep tabs on all the silly stuff we're doing, both sides here. And I'm super excited. Hopefully I expressed that. And yeah. I'm excited for 2019, man.
As am I. Just a month away. Can't believe it. 30 days. So for at NYCFCTactics, I am at the Andres Soto on Twitter. Let's go NYCFC.
Go read a book.
I don't like reading, but yeah. All right, man.